Much choir. Jeannie did read for us the text we are considering the castle today. Let your mind just roll back a little. At the close of last year, you made certain resolves. Perhaps you brought those resolves with you into the new year. Or, when we entered the new year, you decided that you should target certain things and make certain that they are accomplished. With some of us, it's the whole idea of actually getting new clothes and better clothes that we may look much better than we did in the year before. Certain of us, it's the resolve to just eat in a better meal, delicious meals. As somebody has said, eating is very important. And so you want to eat those meals above you can say, oh, that was sumptuous. Still others, we say, look, my house has been looking like I don't live there anymore. This year, everybody who comes in it will say, this seems to be a little bit of heaven. Some of us go on to say, well, I just want to have new friends, a better family, and just let my life be a much more meaningful and successful thing than what I've known in time past. And the catalog of the stuff that we thought we should do goes on, lamenting what we didn't accomplish last year, and saying, this year, I must make sure these things happen. And nothing wrong with that. If we don't dream, we won't go anywhere. So we keep on dreaming and dreaming and dreaming on. But in the midst of all this, have we stopped to ask ourselves the question, why really am I living? What am I living for? Am I living to eat, living to dress, living to make friends, living to entertain myself? There are many among us and beyond us whose only reason to be alive is that they are still alive today. And the pattern of their lives goes after this manner: get up, eat, play, work, and come to the end of the day with a kind of smile upon our lips. And as we go saying, oh, it was a good day, very close to cloud nine or just there, we say, we hope tomorrow may even be better. But we know only too well, even though that's our desire, sometimes the inevitable happens. Disaster strikes, a pain sets in, and there's been a drawing back. We can't help it, because that's just the nature of humanity. We may smile today, be sorrowful tomorrow, be delighted today, and yet be disturbed the next time. Life goes on. But is that your way of life? Just get things done, human things done, and then come to the day and look back and say, it was either done or not done, and you hope the next day will be better. The Apostle Paul has a bigger and better goal than all of us can ever envisage. And this is what he pictures to us in writing this book. And in fact, he's writing to a people who are very close to his heart. He's not writing to Jews who have synagogues. He's writing to a Gentile nation that don't even have a synagogue. They have a place called a place of prayer because they're just getting into the system. But they gather there, and there he has precious memories, because not long earlier he had spoken, and a young woman called Lydia had opened her heart to the Lord. And she had become the vessel through which this church had been instituted. And as he's writing, he's certainly wanting to give these people that meaning in life, that goal of life, that purpose in life that will actually be meaningful today, meaningful tomorrow, and meaningful forever. And this is where he begins. at least so far as this verse is concerned, he tells something about his past. Ooh, is there anything to do with a goal there? Watch it. Paul realizes he's been serving this great God who is a lawgiver. He's been serving this wonderful God who is the guide of his people. He's been actually living for this God who he knows has been the preserver and provider for his people. He's been serving this God who has been teacher to his own, about whom they can say, no nation in all existence has ever a teaching so high as ours, because our God is big, our teaching is bigger than whatever the other people can think about. We are that nation who can boast having received from God's own hands his laws, and we have those laws that guide us. And as far as Paul was concerned, he so gave himself to the purposes of this God that he violently followed this God. When we're talking about jihadists and things like that, there will be child's play so far as Paul was concerned, because he was violent for his God, killed for his God. As far as he was concerned, following God was serious business. If God was God, he had not to be followed in part. He had to be followed fully. And Paul did that as best as he knew how. That past he knew. God is God. And as a Jew, he knew there was only one God. And as a Jew, he knew that that God had appeared to his people. As a Jew, he knew that that God had saved his people, and that God had guided his people, and that God wanted to be among his people, and that God wanted to be still a blessing to his people. He knew all that. That is as far as his past went. But have you come to a point where, when you've done your best, suddenly something hits you, and your best becomes your worst? This is the experience that Paul goes to, because this is what we see when we realize what happens with his relationship to God in the present. For he who said, that I may know him. In the past, then, he knew him. Now in the present says, that I may know him, and the power of his resurrection. I thought I knew him. I who thought I knew him, I realize I really don't know him. When most of the African countries, some of the African countries were colonized by that little nation, stubble nation called the Great Britain. What the people did in Britain is that they would get young men, vigorous young men, energetic young men, send them to war. And quite a number of Africans died in wars they knew nothing about. In a book called The Old Man on the Meadow, one man who had donated his sons to war was being awarded for the contribution he had made for the success of his foreign nation. And what a celebration there was. And as that celebration went, whoever felt they should fall into trouble, they say, when I fall in trouble with the law, I shall simply tell the law enforcing officers, I am a friend of the friend of the friend of the man who will be receiving the medal. And when they hear that, they will forgive me. So as long as I am related to the man who is going to be honored by the governing nation, the imperialistic nation, it's going to be well. The colonizers have recognized that man. That's what they're giving him a medal. And the man himself felt, ooh, I'm old. But if I'm going to be given a medal, I'm young again. Suddenly you have the attention, not only by the governing authorities, by the entire world. Everybody now can begin their conversations in my name. He is given the medal, all right, at a fabulous celebration. But he drinks himself silly. And what happens is, Everybody goes and is left in the celebration room alone, and he begins to pour heavily. And when he wakes up, awakened by his own snoring, what am I? Oh, he realized what has happened. Everybody has abandoned him. So he begins to make his way home. But it is heavily raining and thundering. When it thunders, it gives him light, and he blesses God for that. When no thunder, he just wades his way through, hoping he's going in the right direction. A police officer meets him, and he says to him, "Who are you?" He says, "I'm the man who just received the medal." "Where's your medal?" The medal had fallen off and gone somewhere. He didn't even know where. The officer arrests him. In jail, he says, when I wake up tomorrow, I'll go before the magistrate, and when I say I got the medal, the police officer is in deep trouble. How can he arrest a man who has just been recognized by the governing authorities and had received a medal? The next day came. He was battered for loitering in the dark. He was not remembered. His own friends had forgotten him. The givers of the medal had forgotten him. And now he was jailed. But later on, when they realized that he was just an innocent old man, they released him. When he reached his home, his wife says, "Where have you been?" The man explains the story. And the people say, "But you just got the medal. What shall we now tell the people?" He says, "Tell them just this. I'm just an old man now." And the writer of the book says the man came face to face with himself. The energy he had yesterday, that energy went today. The passion he had the day before became passiveness the next day. The victory he had the day before became defeat the next day. When he thought he had a bit of energy and a bit of hope, and surely there was something still that he could do, suddenly he realized he was just old and pining away. The medal had achieved next to nothing for him. And just an old man now. This is what Paul experiences, that I may know him. I thought I knew him, but when I see him now, whatever my achievements were, come to nothing, because I realize my knowledge was this long. Now he's that big. Isn't that the same experience that Job has? When he loses his children in one go, his property at one time, his health, suddenly he's just maggots almost. And his wife says to him, "Curse God and die." He turns and says to her, "Woman, I won't do that foolish thing." He says, "God, when I find you, I shall challenge you." It's as if he had heard God say to the devil, "Have you seen my servant Job? There is no one like him, not only in this part of the world, in all the earth, upright and righteous. When God says that about you, there must be something good about you. And it is this man who suffers. It is this man who is in pain. It's this man who is sick, almost to the point of death. Except the Lord tells the devil, touch the man, even his health, but spare his life. The devil goes only as far as God permits him. And that is why when we face so many troubles, we should not quickly run to the devil. Let's give God the credit. Even punishment, even pain is a blessing when it is sent by God, for he has an intended purpose in it. But we often miss that and go the other way, concentrating on the enemy. Job doesn't do that. He says, "God, when I find you, I'll challenge you." When he does find that God, you know what he says? "God, I heard of you by the hearing of the ear, and I had you in my head. Now I have you in my heart." And you know what he says? "I repent in sackcloth and ashes." He who was full of integrity, he who was full of personal uprightness, he had done nothing wrong. And then when he sees God in the light in which he sees him, he says, "I repent." Have you ever come to that place in your life where you can say, yes, I have lived, and I have lived as best as I can for God. And yet when God shows you who he really is, suddenly you say, oh, did I really know you? Until we come to that, we really have nothing to live for. We really have no purpose in life. We are targeting really nothing. Because what we do will bring us to the place where Paul has been. Rubbish, useless, ending and taking me nowhere. But when I come to this Christ, then I realize, there is something in life. There is a promise of righteousness and the crown of life from a God who sent his Son to live a life I could not live and to die a death I could not die, that my trust might not be in myself, but in him who for my sake died, that I might live for him.
Amen.
How many of us have come to that point? When the Apostle Paul sees himself in the present, he also prospects something, that I may know him and the power of his resurrection, and if possible, attain to the resurrection from the dead. See what is prospecting. I am the one who knows God, and am one who knows God now. And I am known by God, as Jackie reminded us. And if possible, I want to know God the way God knows me. I'm the one who knows that God has come down in human form, not only to teach humanity what ideal humanity is, but also save humanity to move him towards ideal humanity. I know that. And I know also that this God who came in my image made me in his image. But I lost that image when I sinned against God. But God is restoring me to that image. And I want to be restored to that image, that if it was possible, I know it's impossible now, but if it was possible, I want to be perfect now. I want to be holy now. I want to be blameless now. I want to be shameless now. I want to be excellent now. I want to be everything that is beautiful in God's eyes now. It's going to happen then. But as my friend John says, he who sees Christ, because he hopes in the pure, purifies himself, even as his Christ is pure. So I want to be that now. If it was possible, I want to shine like an angel, be spotless like an angel, be glorious like an angel, sparkle like that seraphim that endlessly worships God with no mistake, with no failure, with no fault and no falsehood. I want that to happen now. It's going to be better then, but I want it to be at its best now. See, as somebody has observed, and I observed it for myself too, and you observe it for yourself, that as Paul ends his writing, this key chapter in this book of Philippians, he says, let this be permitted for me, that I may. In verse 8, it says, that I may gain Christ. See, that I may gain this person of Christ. In verse 10, which Jeannie read for us, it says, that I may know. Gain Christ, know Christ. And then goes on in verse 11 and says, that I may attain to the resurrection of the dead, even putting up with suffering, knowing that suffering for the present age opens up heaven for me. And with that I may, verse 12, lay hold of the Christ. See? Gain Christ, know Christ, attain to the resurrection of Christ and lay hold of Christ. What a goal. It's better than getting up and eating and doing whatever we want to do, and in the end even be disappointed with our own actions. Because Christ opens up and filters his way through every area of life and makes it go beyond the present. That's a life to live. Is that the life you're living? Does the Christ really characterize your life? Or there are other passions that dominate you? I leave it. I'll ask Cheryl and Betha to join me as we have thought back. But maybe let's do the offering before we do the worship.